Hi, this is Jeff Blauette, technical agronomist with Cooperative Farmers Elevator, and on this week's Field Friday segment, I thought we'd talk about something that we're looking towards for next year already. Got a coat on today. It's starting to cool down a little bit finally after all the heat we've been through, and we may have some warmth yet, but you can see we're in a field that we've already had some hog manure applied after soybean harvest, and we're kind of on the early edge of that. Our soil temperatures right now are still kind of in that mid-50s range, but there's some things we can do, and there's things that are happening right now that allow us to go out maybe a little bit earlier just because we have to get all the work done. But we've talked about in previous years, but I'm talking about it again, the nitrogen stabilizer option that we have, and we're putting manure on especially early in the application season, but it helps some for this fall. It also helps for next spring. But what we're trying to do with the nitropyrin based nitrogen stabilizers are probably the most effective on the market, the Instinct and the N-Serve if it's anhydrous. But what we're looking to do is kind of suppress the activity of a couple of the bacteria in the soil that change that the nitrogen either in the manure or in the fertilizer we're applying. It changes it from that, or tries to keep it from changing that, basically the ammonium form of nitrogen, which is stable and held in the soil, trying to keep it from being converted to the nitrate, which is not held in the soil and is mobile with water. Yeah, it seems like we don't have enough moisture around to even leach anything away, but that all can change. We've seen these pendulums swing before, where we go from way too wet to way too dry. We weren't that many years away from being saturated for a couple of years in 18 and 19. But we've got a really kind of an expensive investment right now with whether it's manure or whether it's the nitrogen that's going to be applied to protect that. We're also trying to protect that from being gone and losing yield on a really expensive crop that we're probably going to have next year. I mean, our commodity price is probably going to dictate that we can't afford to lose any bushels, so it's worth making sure that we have an insurance policy. And that's what the nitrogen stabilizers really are, is they're an insurance policy. There's no guarantee that this nitrogen that's out here, if it got converted today to nitrate, is going to leach away before we need it next June, but I wouldn't bet on that. Mother Nature always tries to throw curveballs at us, and we probably could be really wet next spring. Who knows? I hope we are, to be quite honest, to get some more moisture in the system. But it's an insurance policy. Most insurance policies you don't collect on all the time, but it's pretty valuable insurance in my mind. There's talks about, disrupting a microbial activity in the soil. There's more emphasis on microbes in the soil now. But these types of nitrogen stabilizers basically are kind of suppressing the activity of two bacteria in the soil, not all the bacterial activity, but mainly a couple that are involved in this nitrogen conversion. It doesn't kill all the soil bacteria in the soil or anything like that, but basically what we're trying to do is be more environmentally conscious, first of all, and then obviously be more productive down the road and have a more insured source of nitrogen going forward. Thinking about the two things that we're hoping to accomplish, we can put a little higher rate on if we're putting it on in lower or higher soil temperatures than we really should be. We like to see those soil temperatures below 50, but we're trying to protect that from being converted this fall. And then the other side of that is next spring as we warm up. If we warm up next spring in March, we can have some soils starting to get warm enough where microbial activity starts getting going pretty early in the spring some years. And we've got a long time yet before we need that nitrogen, probably into June before we really start needing a lot of nitrogen. So that wet spring is also what we're trying to protect that nitrogen loss from leaching. And so that's what we're hoping to accomplish by these applications. We're doing a lot of nitrogen stabilizer in the manure in the fall, or in the N-Serve and in the anhydrous applications this fall. The other side of that is next spring, the fertilizer nitrogen applications with urea or with liquid nitrogen would be adding it at that time, and that's to hopefully help it for the wetter springs, earlier summer nitrogen loss. So a couple different things we're doing. But just wanted to touch on that. It's time to have that thought process if you haven't already. We've got a pretty valuable asset that we're protecting. A lot of manure going on in some of our area, and it is something we probably should consider protecting. So with that, that's this week's Field Friday segment, and we'll see you next week.